Welcome to the latest episode of 305 Vox Populi. I'm Mayor Manny Cid, and with us, we have Andy Platt. Andrew, is it Andy or Andrew? What's up?
Depends if I owe you money or not.
That is true. That is true. We have, so Andy, I'm going to break the ice like this, because I usually ask people what their why is, but I want to walk through, several years. I've known you for over 12, 13, 14, 15 years, and, you're a kid that grew up in PSN. Right? And when I first met you, you were this ambitious guy who wanted it all, right? You were doing restaurants in Tennessee, Kentucky, here, there. You even did one of my buddies at his house. You did a dinner. I mean, you were doing so many things. And then I've seen the evolution of Andy Platt to where you're at today, where, man, that journey is amazing. Because today, you're just opened up a business here in Miami Lakes. It's a franchise. You're doing amazing, but you have a bunch of other businesses. You've done so many things. So I can tell you, as somebody who's watched the journey, man, I'm super impressed, super inspired, because the journey was real. But we want to dig deep into that journey, right? Absolutely. And kudos to you. Really proud of you, man, because as somebody growing up locally, everything you've done. But what's that why, right? What's that why that drives you? Because it's a tough game, right? I own a restaurant. I've had to cook, but the food game is tough. But when was it that it clicked for you, that you said, this is what I want to do? By the way, he's been on TV. He's pretty famous, been on many shows on TV as well. We'll get into that in a second. But when did it click for you that you were like, this is it? The food game is my game.
It's the only thing I've ever done, right? In every iteration of what I wanted, and it's gone back to when I was in kindergarten, right? There's pictures that were drawn that my mom still has of what do you want to be when you grow up? And you ask any 5-year-old, what do they say? An astronaut, a basketball player, a judge, a firefighter, a police officer. I wanted to be a chef. And they're like, what the hell is wrong with this kid, right? A chef. And going back 35 years ago, what was a chef? There wasn't this TV persona of, these days everybody wants to be two things, a rock star and a restaurant owner. And guess what? They can't sing, they can't play a guitar, and so they want to be a restaurant owner, and then they fail miserably. But this is something that I've always wanted to do since I was a little kid. And to the fact that it was supported. When other kids were out playing t-ball, I was making cupcakes. Right?
That's awesome.
And it's one of these things.
You got a picture of that?
Yeah, somewhere. I'll be able to share it. I'll be able to share it. I remember in my, how old are you in first grade? 7 years old?
6, 7.
7, right? My 7th birthday, I was given a cookbook and an apron that said Chef Andy. So this goes back. This isn't, in the words of Trick Daddy, back in the days when it wasn't, literally it was back in the day, and it's the only thing I've ever done. And my career has been an amalgamation of a lot of things, right? A passion or a love for food and beverage, and something, you being in the restaurant game, it's more than just the food. It's the experience. It's the whole, there's this gravitas to it that is, what is a great meal, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody serves the same thing, food and an experience. And it's how do you differentiate yourself? And how to say, you asked, when did it click? It's always been there. It's a fire that's kindled, right? And my path has stayed true to food and beverage, right? Whether it's being an operator, a director, a corporate chef for a group, or just doing my own thing, or saying, you know what, I'm done with this, I'm gonna work for myself. It's just always been there, right? And there's one common denominator in life, is we all need to eat and we all need to drink. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter how much you make, how much you're worth, how much you owe anyone. Every day we gotta get up, we gotta drink water, we gotta eat something. So why not be in a business that everybody needs? Theoretically, everybody needs a car, but there's public transportation. Theoretically, everybody needs to do a lot of things, but there's one thing in totality, is we gotta eat, we gotta drink. Now, what we eat and drink, that's up for discussion, right? Some people eat off of pork and beans in the can, and some people eat foie gras and A5 Wagyu steaks, but we all gotta eat. So that's why I'm in the business that I'm in, right? Because at the end of the day, when you go to celebrate something special, right? you're married, you have another baby on the way, you've got, 3 beautiful kids now. What do you do when you go to celebrate a birthday?
You go eat.
You go eat, right? When your son wins his first t-ball game, what do you go do?
Go eat. Yeah,
right?
You're right.
So it's this like ever-ending cycle of why not be in a business that something always has to do, right? Like my wife, she's a lawyer. People only call her when they're in trouble or they need something fixed. For me, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you're always gonna call.
No, that is that is true. You definitely have a captive audience, right? And then I think obviously after that is looking at, your market, your all that. But you're right. Overall, you're always forever going to have that captive audience. But real quick, Andy, and just because I know your resume is so big, we could talk about it the whole podcast, right? But really brief, if you can talk to us about what that first job is and just jump through the history and where you're at today, because I mean, we could be on here the entire 45 minutes, hour, 30 minutes, whatever it may be. But yeah, just real brief synopsis of first job in the food game, right? To what you're doing today.
I'll tell you, first real job. Like
I mean,
listen,
the cupcakes.
No. I'll tell you one thing, right? So it's quite funny. When I was 12 years old, it was spring break in 6th grade. My mom was really good friends with Gabe at the Pampered Chef, right? And I went
Gabe's
up to him and I was like, Gabe, I want to work here. I was 12 years old. I was, in the words of my grandmother, un mojón, right? This thing. And he's like, show up Friday, 6 o'clock in his, thing. And I showed up. And he paid me like, a couple bucks to polish silverware or make coffees. It wasn't a job, but to me it was, right? And I worked and I would go in and help. And then, that's when it really started the fuel, right? Like now working in a restaurant. I was 12 years old. I was a little kid. But he just let me help out. It was menial tasks. Go wash the windows or wipe a table, right? Like nothing egregious. And that's where it started. And then, I worked for chain restaurants. And then I said, you know what? I'm better than this, right? I'm going to be the owner. I had this, I guess some may call it a delusion of grandeur. When I was a little kid, that like I had my grandmother's best friend's grandson said, I want to be a priest. And I'm like, I want to be the Pope, right? So I wanted to always be something bigger. I didn't want to be the waiter. I wanted to be the manager. I didn't want to be the manager. I wanted to be the GM. And I didn't want to be the GM. I wanted to be the director. And when I was the director, I wanted to be the CEO.
That's awesome.
So it was this eternal grab, right? And you just keep grasping and grasping and grasping. And to say that, I've had some great jobs and I've had some, pardon my language, really shitty jobs. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on TV, but really crappy jobs, right? And then there's some of these jobs that I've taken, right? Like one of the jobs that I enjoyed the most, I was there for almost 4 years. I was the corporate chef for Grove Bay Hospitality Group. I moved back from Tennessee. I went up there to open some restaurants. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the way I wanted. And I moved back to Miami and I joined this group, and man, we created something really special, right? I worked my tail off, then COVID hit, and none of the restaurants faltered. None. Everything stayed open, kept going, kept growing, right? And that wasn't the case. And then I had my first son, my son Andy, and it was, he's 2.5, and I came to this existential crisis that we all have, like, what is life, right? Like, I felt like Søren Kierkegaard asking, what the hell is life? My son, I wake up at 6 a.m. grinding, right? 14 restaurants under my purview of controlling a lot of different aspects. And you start saying, Bonio, what is this? My wife getting text messages from her friends that they see me on a Friday night. And my wife's like, well, great. I'm drinking wine and eating pizza alone and then getting home at midnight. And I said, you know what? I got to do something. And I left that group. And then during that time there, I met my business partner at Ernie's at a dinner. Right, we were down in the Keys at a club called Ocean Reef, and we were out to dinner, and it was 8 of us at a table, and all 8 of us thought the other 7 made the reservation for the restaurant that night. And we get there and they're like, yeah, we're packed, we have nothing. So they put us in the kids section outside in the middle of summer. It's Labor Day weekend and the mosquitoes are swarming, and I'm talking, my wife's with her friends and colleagues, they're talking about stuff that I don't care about. Come in this table and this guy's complaining about this project over budget, permits, grease trap, blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is my world, right? Like, and I tell my wife, I'm gonna go talk to them. they're making a huge mistake. Let me go talk to them. My wife's
Wait,
like,
they weren't sitting
no,
at
they
your
were
table?
sitting. So like where those guys are sitting, and this guy's like, the equipment, I thought it was going to be 10,000. It's 30. And I'm like, I'm going to go talk to him. My wife is like, no, you're not. She's like, siéntate. Like, and I'm like, no, I'm going to go talk to him. It's fine. And she's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I am. And I went up to him and I'm like, sorry, I don't know you. I didn't mean to be eavesdropping, but this is what I do for a living. He's like, yeah, sure you are. Right? Turns out he owned a cigar company. When I was in Tennessee, there was a cigar bar, carried his cigars. We were the only bar in Tennessee that had them. And it was a very obscure, small boutique brand, a very large, well-known brand. But then we started talking and he would call me and I'm like, here, just take my number, man. Right now, you're trying to buy equipment. You're going about it the wrong way. Like, you're trying to buy from Bob, but Bob buys from Mary and Bill. So why don't we just buy from Bill? So I started giving him numbers, and then lo and behold, now we have 3 restaurants in a matter of 18 months of opening our first one, almost 3 years since we first met, and we're on this roller coaster. And on top of that, I have my hospitality consulting company that I've always done consulting on the side, right? Kind of like that. How do I make extra money? How do I do that? I have a wealth of knowledge that a lot of people don't have of many aspects of the operation. In our world, it's usually front of the house and back of the house. But what if you have somebody that knows front of the house, back of the house, licensing, permitting, engineering, all of these things? Well, that's what I'm good at. So I've created a niche market of being a consultant that doesn't suck, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody's like, oh, consultants suck. They just provide, these like esoteric and these big dreams and, just like it's a bunch of hoopla and PowerPoints. And it's like, no, we're going to give you, solutions that work. Ask me how I know. It's like, everybody tells you don't do that. Ask me how I know. Well, ask me how I know. I've been through it of, the challenges here in Miami-Dade County of going through DERM or WASA or these things that nobody tells you about when you sign a lease, right? Nobody tells you that you're going to have to spend thousands of dollars just to see if the sheet of paper that they gave you is correct. But what if you had somebody in your corner that knows the next move, that knows that this person is going to be playing chess and is 3 steps ahead of you? And that's what we've created with my company that I do. I call it my day job of helping people develop restaurant concepts that naturally sometimes should have no business of being in the business. But to my previous point in the beginning, everybody wants to be a rock star and a restaurant owner. They can't sing, and they think that just because they see the Komodos of the world and, the poppy steaks and these $1,000 dinners, that's not real life. That's a farce. I was talking to the high school kids earlier today. Miami is a giant farce. Like, everybody drives a Lambo, and you look around, you never see so many hyper and supercars in the world, but like, they're rented. They're leveraged to the hills. Yeah. Like
the jewelry is lent to them. Yeah,
exactly. But and the same thing happens in the restaurant business too. Everybody wants these big restaurants, and it's just like, you don't need that. Like, sometimes the small cafe like you have gives more joy and pride because it's the place where the 4 old guys get together every morning and talk about the weather, or the kid like celebrating his T-ball win, eating like Nutella French toast. Like, that's what it's about.
Very true. Very true. And quick tidbit for the students watching. If you notice what Andy said, and that's why it's so important, not only to network, but I think there's a saying to shoot your shot, right? Yeah. And if you don't do that in life, if you're always timid, if you're always afraid, you never know where that is going to lead. And just by that combo, it's from your wife telling you, siéntate, to you say, no. I'm going to have, look where it's led to.
Right.
And look where it's led to 3 stores. Mm-hmm. It's led to, I think, can I mention this? The cigar part?
No.
Okay. I'll keep that. All right. 3 stores, the consulting business, all that. But I think that's really amazing, right? Shooting your shot is truly phenomenal. So,
yeah, no, it's truly phenomenal, right? And I'm going to tell you something. Like, I was told by a teacher in high school, right? I went to a high school around here, a local private school. I'm not going to say any names. And I was told by this teacher that I would never amount to anything as a chef, that I should do something else, that is a wasteful use of my God-given talents. So I say to you, a teacher that tells you nothing, tell him to go fly a kite, shoot your shot, give it all you got, and you know what? You're going to be successful. And you know what? That was when I was 17. By the time I was 21, I was invited every year after I graduated high school to be a career day, to be a success story, to inspire the students.
Yeah,
and
but
when I
wait.
approached him years later, he's like, I did that to inspire you. I'm like, no, you're an asshole.
No, 100%.
Part of my language, like, you don't tell a kid that they're not going to amount to something in their dreams, because guess what? Joke's on him.
100%. And I think in life you need those haters, right, to fuel that fire, right? So,
hey, listen, you wouldn't be in if you listen to all your haters or I listen to all my haters.
Bro,
listen,
we wouldn't be here today, right?
So. We wouldn't be here. And you know what? And for me, it's about doing it for my kids, man. Like, I drive hard for my kids, so they don't have to work as hard as I have to. They don't have to be inside of a grease trap to block it out because no plumbers will come. Or, shoveling garbage into a dumpster because the staff was lazy and blocked the dumpsters. And no, man, it's not about that. Our job as parents, as business owners, is to make our lives better for our kids, our spouses, and ultimately our employees.
100%. And I got one more question before I hand it over to Brent, Albert, and the students. So looking back, because I think there's times that, especially folks that are very busy like yourself, never get a chance to just sit back and reminisce on the journey, right? Mm-hmm. Today, opening up your dirt store here in Miami Lakes, right in your home, right? From doing that, from opening up where we're cutting the ribbon tomorrow, actually, and looking back to that first day selling cupcakes, right? Making cupcakes, to having that teacher tell you, hey, this ain't, you know what I mean? Tell you what, now it's fuel to the fire, but he could have discouraged you, right? But he didn't. And that first day at Gabe, if you could just look back, all those years, how does that feel?
It's one hell of a ride, right? And it's kind of like, when you have, it's every day, right? We all face challenges every day, and our careers are challenges, right? And we think, oh my God, I'm not going to make it through the day. I just want to jump off of a cliff right now. I want to turn my phone off. I want to disappear. Then you look back and you get it complete and you're like, that was one hell of a ride. And when you're in the thick of it, you're like, this sucks, right? Like in high school, they made you run and run and run. But when you're done, you felt great because you finished.
100%.
But when I look back, I'm like, wow, I've done a lot, right? I'm 37 years old. I've got a resume and I've worked with the best, right? And, my mom used to be like, be humble, mijo, be humble. You're 22 years old. You have the job of a 50-year-old. But you know what? Sometimes you gotta stay humble, but sometimes you gotta be arrogant. You gotta have that swagger, right? Like they say that nice guys finish last. Yeah, they do. But you know what? You kind of have to have an edge to you so that, makes somebody, right? These high school students, right? You're gonna sit in front of a 50 or 60-year-old person and you're gonna wanna be that manager. You're gonna wanna be their top salesperson. But you gotta go in there with a level of swagger that's like, yo, I am your guy. I am your girl. I am your person. And what I'm going to do, no one else can do. And I've always taken that. I am going to run a company as if it was my own, even if it wasn't my own. Because one day it will be.
We're taking a quick break to thank our sponsors. Shout out to Raul Brew and the folks at Sergio's Cuban here in Miami Lakes for providing, being today's food sponsor. They're located at 15135 Northwest 67th Avenue here in Miami Lakes. Their phone number is 305-508-9881. Shout out to Fred Senra. You get your cars from Miami Lakes Automall?
Doesn't everybody?
All right. So shout out to Fred, Miami Lakes Automall. They're located at 16600 Northwest 57th Avenue here in Miami Lakes. You can reach him at 305-455-3510. Fred gave the seed money to start this podcast. Actually, they run a podcast out of here now for the Chamber of Commerce. Andy, what'd you think when you walked in, man, and you saw a mayor's office look like this?
It looks amazing, and the artist that did it, she is primo. I actually know her.
Griselle?
God, I don't know. Yeah, she's great people.
Good people.
Yeah, she's great. She, donated a couple of pieces for a restaurant that we were working on about a decade ago. And it's just amazing art. Like truly, truly, truly spectacular artist.
That's awesome, man. Shout out to Griselle. Really amazing. 786-353-8608. Then we have Enrique Santos. He was on the show already. It's been like 2 years. And he saw we didn't have a roadcaster. Harold went out and bought it, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, he donated that, which they use for a lot of their stuff today. And last but not least, Matter Lakes Broadcasting, Albert, Brent, 120 students having their program. Yeah, they're the envy of Northwest State. They really do a good job because these are the skills of the future. And shout out to Papa Bear for believing in them so they not only not only do they work on the podcast, now they'll work on this episode, but they do all their school events, all the sports games, baseball, this, that. They have reporters. I mean, you name it. They do everything under the sun. So shout out to them, and thank you to all of our sponsors. Very true. Very true. I'm going to hand it over to the students and Bren and Albert. We have a special guest too, Laz in the back, if you had any questions. Go ahead, Bren.
So, out of everything you've done, to creating HAA Hospitality Group, to running and opening numerous restaurants, so what can you say so far? Because I know for you, the sky's still the limit, so you're still on your way, because I know you haven't hit your end game yet. So what can you say has been so far your proudest moment?
I don't know if I have one yet, right? Because they're all an amalgamation of other things. And when I think, wow, I did that, something else cooler comes up, right? Or like, there was a deal that, I ultimately walked from, right? Like, I was in negotiations, like me, a kid from PSN, lives in Miami Lakes, in serious negotiations with Tiffany, this jewelry company, become the operator of their cafe. And unfortunately, the deal didn't work out, and it wasn't the right deal for me. But to be sitting in rooms and getting NDAs, sending back and forth, like, at the end of the day, I'm just a guy from the neighborhood, right? Like, being, in deep negotiations with one of the most iconic jewelry brands in the world, right? Owned by Arnault, right? Like the wealthiest man in the world, to be the operator of their new cafe. Like, holy crap. Like, I think that was a realizing moment, that I'm sitting in their offices and we're just going back and forth. And sometimes you just got to know when to walk away from a deal, that this isn't going to be what you expect it to be. And unfortunately, I did that. And I don't know if it's unfortunately, but everything happens in life for a reason. But I think that would be that moment, right? And that happened a few months ago, literally. And I'm just like, there was just too many moving parts, and it wasn't going to be as seamless and straightforward, and it was going to take up too much time. And sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And I think another important notice that I want to give to the students and people watching this is knowing when to leave the poker table, right? And knowing when the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Just because it's on your resume doesn't mean it's worth it, right? Is it going to be more problematic than it's worth? And that's something you got to learn in life, right?
That is very true. What else you guys got?
What's your end game? Like, what more do you want?
I don't know what more that I want, because as it goes, it changes every day, right? Right? Think about where you are in life right now, right? And I know that this is kind of like spinning the wheels, and I'm going to answer it with a rhetorical question. Right now, you have a goal of something, right? Maybe it's to graduate high school. That's your goal. And once you graduate high school, you're going to keep going, right? And maybe you have a job and you're saving up for a pair of shoes or the new iPhone or a computer. Then you get it. And you're going to be like, oh, I want the next one, right? So it's this end game, this circle, this cat and mouse game that you just keep going, right? Let's ask Manny. Manny's goal was become the mayor of Miami Lakes, right? He got it. And then most people would be like, yay, I got it. And now it's, what's the next move? And then you get to your next step, and what's the next step? So to say if there's an end goal, I don't know what the end goal is. I got a lot of road left ahead of me. And God willing, it's 30, 40 years ahead of me that I don't know where I'm going to be. But I know I'm happy right now. But to say that I have an end goal, maybe it's build a company and sell it. But then you do that, and then what? So you go to the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And you just keep stepping, right? And in life, my business partner is in aviation. He's an avid pilot, and he uses this thing called a step climb, and it's something that everyone in life needs to realize. When you walk upstairs, what does it do? You step, you step, you step, you step, you step, and when you're in an aircraft that isn't powerful enough to get to the altitude that you need to be, you step climb. You go from 500, then you climb up to 1,000, then you fly at 1,000, then you go to 1,500. And it's the same thing that you do in life, right? You get to the next step, you run a little, then you go to the next step, because if you go like this, you fall. But if you step climb and you get there slowly, life is good.
It's very true. Anything else you guys got? Got it. So we hand it over to you. You get to ask 2 questions. You're the host for 2 questions. You got to ask me a question, 2 questions, whatever you ask. You gotta ask them, whatever you want. So we give you 2 shots at it.
Fantastic. You asked me the why. What is the why for you? Not only like personally, politically, what is the why? What drives Manny Cid to get up every morning, tie his shoes, and do what he does? What's the why?
Honestly, it's my faith, right? You know, I really believe that God gives us certain abilities that he wants us to share with the world, right? And then mine, it took me a while there between 18 to maybe 21 to kind of figure it out, but mine was in public service, right? So I really believe that God gives us these moments in life and that we're supposed to share that platform with others, right? That's why you bring people with us. That's why we do that's why we do a lot of things that we do. But I really believe that, right? Ingrained in me, my why, obviously my family, my wife, my kids, my baby is gonna be born in the next 4 weeks, as well. My parents' history as my grandparents as Cuban exiles. But man, I really, really believe that God gives us certain skills, certain platforms, right? Like God, the Bible says God puts you or he removes you, right? From certain situations. And I feel that he put me as the mayor of Miami Lakes, right? There's free will. I had to work for it. I had to do, but certain things happen along the way where you realize you're like, man, there's a reason why I'm here. And that's where my why is at. Look, God, I figured out what I was good at. But then I also, in the back of my mind, always know that God wants us not to use these positions for self-fulfillment, but as platforms to help others, but to bring others up with us as well, right? And that's a motivating factor for me every day, right? It's you hit it on the head. A lot of people would be happy with just having on their resume that they were the mayor of Miami Lakes, right? I don't want to be known as the mayor of my long term, right? Right now I am. But 10 years from now, I don't want people to see me and be like, hey, that's the former mayor of Miami Lakes. Like, that's terrible. Like, that was a phase in my life that leads me on to something else in life. But yeah, I think for me, 10 years from now, whenever 20 years, I don't want to be known as the mayor of Miami Lakes. Or hey, that guy back in the days, that guy was a great mayor, a great guy. That's terrible. You know what I mean? That people remember you for something that you did along your journey. I think you hit it on the head. Your journey is constantly evolving, right? So to me, that's really important. I won't settle just because of that. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but a lot of people would get happy just with that one title, but I don't, and it's not even about the title. It's just about whatever it may be I do in the future, and it doesn't have to be in public service. It could be doing something, whatever it is. I want that to be those defining moments as to what you're currently doing. Not, this guy used to be, this guy, I think that's, look, it's like Alex Rodriguez, right? I can't compare myself to Alex, but.
No, you kind of have this A-Rod look.
Yeah. No, I got that. So A-Rod's a perfect example, right? That guy went from being everybody's favorite baseball player to being a pariah to today he rehabbed his image where people don't even think of him as the old A-Rod. Now people are like, wow, this is the investor. He's a shark. He's doing this, and I think that's awesome, right? When somebody's able to continuously reinvent themselves, and I think that's the goal. People don't see him today as like, hey, that's the guy that used to be good. No, that's the guy that's constantly investing. That was a phase of his life. Now he's shifted some, and I think that's, to me, that's powerful.
And then, everybody in life, right, has times where we say, oh, I screwed up, right? And we look back, and I can tell you personally, it's from ages of 18 to like 25. If you knew me then, I'm sorry. I am so sorry that you knew me then. Like, I look at people and I just apologize, and they're like, what are you apologizing? I'm like, you knew me from when I was 18 to 25, and I was just this arrogant, cocky, terrible human being. I wasn't a terrible human being, but I look back and I'm just like, I was a terrible human being. Not in a literal sense, but just that. If you had to go back today and erase an era in your life that you say, I look back and I was just, just un zángano, right? Like like just that thing. What would that be for you?
I've actually thought about it, to be honest with you. And every time I think about it or I reminisce or I've had that question come up, I always see certain phases in life as lessons that set you up for something else in the future. Even, look, I've said this publicly. I failed the 6th grade. I got kicked out of school in the 9th grade. I got kicked out of school when I was in kindergarten. I got kicked out of school one time in high school and then let me back. So
what you're saying is if you get kicked out of school, you can become mayor?
No, well, maybe. But what I'm saying is, though that journey doesn't define you.
Of course not.
And I think they're all lessons. So when I look back, I'm going to give you an example. So when I got kicked out of one school when I was a kid, when I was a freshman in high school, I wanted to go back to the school. I was like, why is this? Like, I want to go back. These are my friends. I went to another school. I went to Pace. In hindsight, now I could look back and understand why. I didn't understand it back then, right? And maybe it was at the moment I didn't behave too good or whatever. But man, being mayor of Miami Lakes, almost every single door that I knocked on, people are like, hey, my kids went to school with you, right? So like, I remember campaigning, and then I was like, I don't know if that was it, but you kind of realize there's always steps along. But look, I wouldn't change anything because that is part of the journey that makes us what we are today. It's funny. I had a lot of people see it now. I had 2 earrings on the left side, one on the right, and to this day, like I'll be at an interview or meeting with somebody, and I see people like staring at my ear because I have 2 holes still there. They're still open. But even that, like I wouldn't change any of it because even the moments that were tough, like failing a grade, getting kicked out of a school, they were all lessons along the journey that I couldn't understand at the moment. But now as an adult, it helps me even relate when I go to speak to kids, right? When I tell a kid, because a lot of elected officials, right, their journey in politics was, maybe their parents are wealthy and well-connected. They let them there. But to me, when I tell a kid, hey, I've been there. I got kicked out of school. I failed a grade. You know what I mean? They're like, wait a second. So I don't know. I wouldn't change anything, to be very honest with you. But good question.
Yeah,
good question.
No worries. Yeah, I was gracefully escorted out of halls of school too, so it's perfectly fine. It's a rite of passage.
It is.
From where I come from.
It
so
is.
I totally get it. And thank you for answering my questions. Thank you for having me on the show.
No. Appreciate you. So Andy, in closing, if you could look at that camera right there in the middle, just share some words of inspiration, motivation to that next Andy Platt, right? And that next kid who, for his 7th birthday, got an apron that said chef on it, who at 12 is working at a restaurant, but sometimes doesn't understand, sees the journey as very difficult. But some words of inspiration, motivation to that next Andy Platt.
So never take no for an answer. And remember, the days are long, but the years are short. Days are long, but years are short. When you're in the thick of it, it can be the longest day of your life. Look at it right now. It's May. We're already 5 months into the year. And the older you get, especially once you get past high school, the years go by so fast, right? And they tell you, man, just enjoy your youth. Don't grow up too fast. Stay at home and live with your parents as long as you can, and save every dollar that you can. Think about it. You can only wear one pair of shoes at a time. There's no need to have 40 pairs of the newest Jordans or whatever's out there these days. So save your money and enjoy life. Don't spend it on stupid stuff, because if I look back on all the stupid crap I've bought over the years, just do it. And don't take no, right? Don't take no for an answer. If they're going to tell you can't do it anyway. Show them how you're going to do it and do it better than them. So that's what I say. So it's a little threefold there. Save your money. Don't spend it on stupid stuff. And ask yourself, if I buy these pair of shoes, am I going to be wearing them 5 years from now? The answer is no, so you don't need them. If someone tells you no, tell them you're going to do it better than them. Don't take that for an answer. You just work hard. Get up every day. It's not going to come to you. I interview kids every day that say, I'm going to be a millionaire. Well, how are you going to do it? Because guess what? Money doesn't fall from a tree. Like, you got to get up and grind, right? Like, you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you go to bed at midnight. Just grind, work hard, because nothing replaces hard work than hard work. Education is very vital, right? You need to be educated, but your education only gets you so far, right? The difference between a great doctor and an okay doctor is the hard work that they put in. Same thing with a lawyer, same thing with a politician, same thing with any business owner. The guy that just clocks in for 3 hours, guess what? They get 3 hours worth of work. You gotta hustle, you gotta drive hard, and save your pennies. Don't buy stupid stuff. And then life is good, man. Life will come. And everybody's timing is different, right? Especially being an entrepreneur. You're going to have friends that at 21 make a lot of money, but you go back 10 years later, they're dead broke. Because they didn't save their money. They didn't do things wisely. And you can be 35 and then you're just hitting your thing. Look at Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC. Didn't really start KFC until he's almost 70 years old. So don't look at your life and compare it to anyone else. We're on our own journey. Just keep hustling, keep driving, and don't worry about everything. Because remember, a pot of rice takes its time to cook. You can't speed it up and you can't slow it down. A pot of rice takes 20 minutes. It doesn't matter what you do, it's 20 minutes. So give your life your 20 minutes.
There you have it. A great example of how far hard work and dedication can take you. That's Andy Platt. So make sure you tune in on next Wednesday on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X.